Emma Sadleir, I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you today.
Thank you for having this conversation.
I am pleased, and let's get into it. Emma, can you tell me a bit about some of the cases that you're dealing with today?
What I've been dealing with for the last 3 days is a case of a girl who was in a video call with a boy. They're 15, 16 years old. He surreptitiously took a screen record of that video call where he had coerced her and pressurized her into taking off her clothes. It was a live interaction. She had no idea that he was filming. He has now circulated those videos. Luckily, one of the recipients of the videos went to the school psychologist who got hold of me, and I've been helping. Let me just tell you the criminal offenses committed by that boy in taking that screen record.
Tell us, yeah.
Creation of child pornography, distribution of child pornography, non-consensual distribution of intimate images. That's under the Cyber Crimes Act. Very serious criminal offense, 3 years in prison. Non-consensual distribution of private sexual images under the Films and Publications Amendment Act. That's a 300,000 Rand fine and 4 years in prison. It's crimininjuria, which is a serious infringement of dignity. It's a very generic crime. We can use it in cyberbullying cases, doxing cases, racism cases, homophobia cases, anti-Semitism cases, Islamophobia. Anytime your dignity is infringed.
Yes.
Someone turns you into a horrible sticker, a horrible meme. The great thing about crimininjuria is that it doesn't require publication. So you're saying terrible things to me in my DMs, I can still go and lay a criminal charge against you, provided you're over the age of 12. There's this idea that if the police come and arrest you, you can say, well, I'm so sorry, Mr. Officer, but I didn't know. Please don't arrest me. No, from 12 years old, you have criminal capacity. My view is you're old enough to have a smartphone. You're old enough to commit a criminal offense. And the problem is, Zolani, is that nobody is teaching these children about what these laws are. Children are finding themselves in enormous emotional turmoil, physical danger, because of the content that is being circulated on these phones. And we're just giving these devices to very young children without teaching them the kind of rules of the road. When you see a car accident, you phone an ambulance. When things go wrong on social media, in South Africa, on the continent, people phone me. The kids phone me, the parents phone me, the schools phone me. So I've got a very good idea about what's going on the ground.
Yes.
I've got a company called the Digital Law Company, and we specialize in education because often prevention is better than cure.
Yes.
You know, in this online world, when things go wrong, they go horribly wrong, and there's often a permanent trace of that online. And
the digital footprint.
Exactly, we really want that not to happen. The worst content I'm seeing is in the 10 to 14 age range. And I think largely, Zolani, that is simply a question of brain development. It happens in the frontal cortex, the impulse control. So that's the part that says, this is a good idea, this isn't a good idea. The little children don't have that. They don't have that filter yet. They can't appreciate the consequences. The internet has no shallow end. Once they're online, they're online. They're going to come across the dodgy people. They're going to come across sophisticated predators who are becoming even more sophisticated. These are not somebody in a back room here in Cape Town. These are international, sophisticated criminal syndicates. These horrible people out there will find you or your child more commonly, wherever they may be. Gaming chat rooms, chat groups, social media, and they will be whoever your child might be interested in. And they feel like they are dating or best friends or something. They'll send some private content. The second they've got the private content, they start extorting, start blackmailing. Often when the girls are targets, they'll say, we want more content. We need you to do this specific thing. And if you don't, then we're going to put this content you've already sent us everywhere. With the boys, often they want money. They are not local, so they want international money transfers, whether that's Bitcoin or MoneyGram or some kind of international money transfer, so they make money out of it. So it's a horrible cycle. Often children are very slow to seek help because they feel very silly that they've done this in the first place.
Yes.
So they often are embarrassed to get hold of somebody like me or to get hold of their parents. It is the biggest issue affecting our children. And the boys are more often targets.
Why
They're
so?
slightly more vulnerable. I think the girls are a little bit savvier about sharing nudes with people that they meet online.
I mean, what are the consequences and what are the rules around children kind of perpetrating this kind of violence?
I use this term image-based violence, but image-based violence is where I use somebody's image to cause them harm.
Yes.
It can be in a sexual context. It can be in a bullying context. We see a lot of horrible stickers being created of kids. I Photoshop your face onto a sumo wrestler's body and talk about how fat you are. And the thing that I'm dealing with daily in my business at the moment is kids using AI to create deepfake pornographic content of other children, what we should be calling child sexual abuse images. All I need is a picture of somebody's face, and I can download these apps where I can take somebody's face and turn them into a very compelling nude, really indistinguishable from
the real thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And where I'm seeing this most concerning is in the sort of 10 to 14 age bracket, where the kids think it's funny, not thinking about the harm being caused to the victim. We have a concept in South African law called capacity. Can you appreciate the consequences of your actions? Should you know the difference between right and wrong? So we have this minimum age of legal capacity in South Africa. In South Africa, under the age of 12, you cannot be arrested. You don't have what we call criminal capacity to commit a criminal offense. We have seen laws around the world being passed where parents are specifically held legally responsible for what their children are up to online up to a certain age. That age is usually 13. Over the age of 14 and up, full criminal capacity. Absolutely no difference in the crimes that can be committed by a 14-year-old and the crimes that can be committed by you and me. If we're dealing in the real world, we're dealing with murder, rape, robbery, theft. In the online world, we have crimes like crimen injuria, a serious infringement of dignity. We can use that if a child's being bullied. If somebody has used somebody's image to cause them harm, we have crimes against sending somebody a threat of violence, a threat of damage to property, any kind of threat, any kind of incitement. Then we have crimes around hacking, password abuse. We have crimes around non-consensual distribution of private sexual images, what a lot of people call revenge pornography. We have rules in South Africa that say that every act of sexting, if you're under the age of 18, is a criminal offense. If you're under the age of 18 and you take a nude of yourself,
it's child pornography.
It's creation of child pornography. These kids don't know that. And it also doesn't really make sense because at 16 you can have sex, but you can't take a picture of yourself naked.
Yes.
But that's what the law says. If somebody asks a child who's under the age of 18 for nudes, a private sexy video, that's solicitation of child pornography. It's a criminal offense. Very important is this development in South Africa that any non-consensual distribution of private sexual images is a criminal offense. So if you send me a picture, a nude, and I show it to somebody, I send it to somebody, I put it online.
Yes.
300,000 Rand fine and 4 years in prison. It's a criminal offense. It's fabulous. I've been working on it for years and it's now in force.
Great.
So if a child does send private content or if somebody obtains private content of them and it's circulated, then not only is it child pornography offenses, but it's also this non-consensual distribution.
So I'm a kid, I'm on this WhatsApp group with whatever, 500 people, and I see something that is inappropriate, dangerous, harmful. What do I do? What is my next step?
Very important in South Africa, we have something called the chain of publication. In short, the chain of publication is if you're in the chain of publishing illegal content, you're responsible for it. You send me a racist meme, I press forward, I'm legally responsible for it. Hate speech, crimen injuria, whatever the consequence might be. The law goes further. It says if you have the ability to stop something from being published and you choose not to, you're also legally responsible for it. So if somebody puts child pornography on my Facebook page, I have the ability to delete it. If I don't delete it when I become aware of it, I'm legally responsible for it. The law says if I choose not to delete it, it's as if I wrote it myself. There are two ways the law gets involved in your life. The one is criminal, the other is civil. I sue you, you sue me. So I can sue you for defamation. You post something on your Instagram today and you say, oh, that Emma Sadleir is a total fraud. She's a loser. She's bought all her degrees. She's a scam artist. Yes. I can sue you for defamation. You've hurt my reputation. Yes. Do you know what the age of civil capacity is?
What is the age?
7. From 7 years old, you can sue and be sued. Yeah, which is actually fabulous.
Why?
Because we can use the law to help victims. If you call me and say, there's a child in my life who is the victim of some horrible online harm, extortion, image-based violence, horrible bullying, death threats, encouragement to suicide type bullying, then I can use the law or even the threat of the law to get that child's life back. So I would send a letter of demand to the child, documenting everything that's happened, read them the Legal Right Act. These are the criminal laws. These are the civil laws. I want a handwritten apology. I want an undertaking you're going to leave this child alone. I want consent to forensically examine your phone if it's to do with private sexual content. Make sure it's been deleted from cloud storage, from the actual device, etc. We put our demands in there. Then I'm going to copy the school, almost always. I'm going to copy the parents. But that child themselves has capacity. So I can send that letter directly to that child. If we don't get the what we're seeking from the baddie, then we can take it a step further. We can go and get a protection order against the child under the Protection from Harassment Act. I know of children who have protection orders against other kids at their own school.
Do you find that when you bring these cases or cases are brought to children within schools, one is bullying the other, that there is a response from schools?
I feel very strongly that schools have a duty to provide a safe environment for a child.
A duty of care.
And it's also in loco parentis, you're there to look after the child. Now, what I'm seeing a lot of schools doing is not fulfilling that duty by saying, this happened off campus. This horrific bullying, you've showed me the messages, I've listened to the voice notes, it happened outside of school hours, outside of school premises, not a school problem, we're not getting involved. And I have a fundamental problem with that.
Why?
Because if you have a child who's the victim of cyberbullying, that is an ongoing harm. Yes. That child doesn't arrive at school on a Monday morning and suddenly stop being that victim, right? Yes. They are a victim. And if they have to sit in class next to the person who was sending them voice notes last night in the middle of the night saying, I wish you'd just go kill yourself, they have to take action. So there's that side of the coin in that if the impact is felt at school, the school should take action. But social media has turned us all into celebrities. Yes. So it doesn't matter whether I'm in my uniform anymore. As long as my face appears, very quickly people are going to say, oh, that person goes to X school. And then the potential exists for you to bring that school into disrepute. So for me, cyberbullying particularly is always a school problem. It's a fascinating time to be in this space. I have been shouting from the rooftops for a decade. During that time, I've spoken to over 800,000 school kids. I've spoken to parents. I've spoken to schools. I've spoken to corporates. And I have been shouting from the rooftops with a loud hailer to anybody who will listen that smartphones, social media should be banned in primary schools. And I felt that I was shouting into the abyss. And then in the last 18 months, I've seen a fundamental shift where the world is waking up. The Surgeon General came out in the States and said that social media should come with a health warning in the same way that cigarettes do. We saw Australia banning social media for children under the age of 16. Jonathan Haidt has written a book called The Anxious Generation, which has woken up, I think, huge populations as to the harms that children are suffering as a result of very early access to these devices and to these platforms. It's suddenly what I'm seeing is parents getting together and saying, we've got to do something about this. Schools really need to get behind this and how we're going to ban phones, and you will see a dramatic increase in attention span, academic performance, etc.
And a decrease, I would imagine, in all sorts of other ills.
Absolutely correct. The principals of schools that have banned phones.
Yes.
I'm getting the following feedback, and it's the same across the board. High schools, girls' schools, boys' schools, co-ed schools, private schools, government schools, they all say the same thing. We've banned phones at school. The school is noisy again. They are saying that the kids are talking to each other. They are playing sport at break time. Yes. There is banter. There is humor. They're playing hacky sack. Yeah. They are having real social interactions. I am appealing to schools to not use platforms like WhatsApp to communicate with children during the academic school day, because then parents are going to feel pressured to get their child a phone and for them to have that phone with them. There are other ways to communicate. There are notice boards if you need to get hold of the parents. The kids are not on Facebook. Facebook is for old people. They're on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, Discord, WhatsApp. They're on huge WhatsApp groups. They're not on WhatsApp groups like you and I are on WhatsApp groups. They have these add everyone groups. So it's not unusual for me to go into a primary school, have a chat to the kids, and kids as young as 9 telling me that they're on these WhatsApp groups which have 1,024 kids on them. So they're add everyone groups, add everyone you know. Most of them don't know each other, and they're sharing sometimes incredibly inappropriate content. And I have a fundamental issue with WhatsApp, because a lot of people say to me, WhatsApp is not social media. It absolutely is social media, because the way the kids are using it is they're updating their status, they are interacting, there's that feedback loop, they're talking to people that they don't necessarily know, they're publishing content on their profiles which is able to be seen by anybody who has their phone number. So the landscape's changed fundamentally. One of the most alarming things that has emerged in recent years was the testimony given by somebody commonly referred to as the Facebook whistleblower. Her name is Frances Hogan, and she worked in Facebook's ethics department. They have one, if you can believe it, for a number of years, and then left with 10,000 pages of documents, which showed that on their own research, they know how bad Instagram is for the mental health of tweens and teens. But what they've worked out is that if they can make tweens and teens sadder, the more time they'll spend online. With adults, it's anger. The more polarizing the content, the more likely you are to engage with it. But with the tweens and teens,
If they can make them sadder, they'll spend more time online. And the more time they spend online,
So
the
it's
sadder they'll get.
You've got it already. I was speaking at Pretoria Boys a couple of weeks ago, and I said to the kids, who wishes that TikTok had never been invented? Every boy in the hall put up their hand. These kids are saying to me that they just cannot stop. The addiction is so awful. It's impacting their sleep, which then has a huge knock-on on how they perform academically, how they perform on the sports field, how they perform socially. And if I can make one plea to every parent watching this, take the device out of the bedroom at nighttime. They will tell you they need an alarm clock. You go and buy them an alarm clock. They cost about 200 ZAR from Clicks, and you take away the device. Because if the phone is in the room, we cannot resist. They definitely cannot resist the temptation to be on that phone. Somebody phoned me recently and they said that their 6-year-old daughter went to stay at Granny's house for the night. And they were lying on the bed watching Granny's phone, which was plugged in and charging, and they were watching some YouTube and Granny fell asleep. And this child, 6-year-old child, watched 8 hours straight of YouTube from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. when the Granny woke up, because you can't stop, because they're gonna keep showing you the stuff. While we're on that, please, I'm begging you, if I could stay in shot and get on my knees, I would get on my knees. No YouTube for young children unless you're in the room with them. I have seen crazy, crazy content on YouTube. And, you may have approved what your 3-year-old is watching, but they click that thumbnail a couple of times and they're a voyage into the underbelly of the internet. I have seen Peppa Pig self-harm videos. I've seen Shrek rape porn. I cannot tell you what I've seen, even on YouTube Kids, right? What I'd far prefer is for them to be watching pre-moderated content. Put them in front of Netflix or Showmax or Disney or anything you have access to, but please be careful of YouTube. The more time you spend online, the sadder you are. The sadder you are, the more time you spend online. The more time you spend online, the sadder you are. The more time you spend online, the more money they make. That is their job, eyes on screen. It's the attention economy. The more time, when I open TikTok, when I open Instagram, when I open YouTube Shorts, the longer they can keep me online, the more money they're going to make. And this starts from toddlers. The YouTube shows that are targeted to kids, which they style as educational so that parents don't feel anything putting a 2-year-old in front of the TV for 6 hours, the emergence of the sort of YouTube as a pacifier. We're training them from very young. We're seeing all the behavioral issues amongst the youth. I think there's a very direct correlation between how much time kids are spending on social media and mental health. For me, when you give a child a smartphone, it's the end of childhood. That's the truth. We were told this lie about how online friends are connection. They're not connection. Online connection is not real-world connection. And our children are going through a crisis of loneliness. And even when on these chat groups, in these chat rooms, playing games with their friends, it's the virtual world. There's no connection. Yes. The opposite of addiction is connection. And that's what we've got to inculcate in our children again and in ourselves. So connection is critical. Yeah. And our children are growing up in a world where they don't know how to connect.
And they think they're connecting.
Online friends are not real friends. Yeah. I gave a talk recently and this 9-year-old girl came to me and she said, last night my friend told me she's going to commit suicide. 9 years old. So I said, we're going to deal with this. How do we get hold of her? How do we get hold of the parents? And she said, oh, well, this is my friend. I said, well, what's her name? She tells me her name. I said, where does she go to school? She doesn't know. Who are her parents? Doesn't know. This friend, who she's been talking to all day, every day for a year, was an adult in a different country, who was putting pressure on this 9-year-old girl by saying, I'm going to kill myself unless you send me this kind of content.
No way.
And but this child felt like this was her friend. But when I just interrogated for 3 minutes, who is this person? Let's quickly get hold of her parents. Let's quickly get her the help she needs. This was not a friend. There is a big difference between real and online friends. The most important piece of advice I can give to parents, other than take the phone away when they go to sleep at night, is to talk to your children about what's going on. I almost like the idea of giving them like a golden waiver that they can come to you and say, I've messed up. Please don't let me be in trouble, but I need your help. These issues are too big for children to deal with on their own. They need an adult. A lot of parents in South Africa are very strict. The kids also, they're so scared the phone's just going to get confiscated. Their phone is their lifeline. They can't live without their phone. If they tell their parents the phone is going to get confiscated, they don't tell. They deal with these issues and they get entrapped in these webs of horror. If you can't tell your parents, tell the school counselor. If your school doesn't have a counselor, maybe a teacher, maybe an older sibling, an older cousin, you can always DM us. We don't charge children. We will always help you if you are in crisis. The most important thing is to have these open, honest conversations with your children about what is going on that device. I'm a big fan of a smartphone contract. There's a free one to download on my website. And when your child gets a phone for the first time, it's an agreement between you and your child, which basically says, these are the rules of engagement. If I don't play by the rules, then I'm going to kind of lose my privileges. So you can put in there a time budget. When I phone you, you must answer. If I find there's misuse on the phone, the internet is awash with examples, and you can find any that resonate with you. The kinds of kids that I'm seeing falling through the cracks most are the kids who are not monitored in the afternoon.
Yeah.
They don't have that parental involvement because the parent's working, right? Parents are working and they can afford to have Wi-Fi, they can afford to buy their child a phone. And what I'm seeing in the South African context, buying your child a phone is almost like a status symbol. It's like, look, I'm doing great. I've bought my child a phone, right? I think there are a lot of tools where parents can set, and they come free, right? So the parental control technologies, the difficulty is it does put the duty on the parents to take the steps. But I just want to really make the plea to parents, don't be scared. There are incredible resources now which give you the sort of parent's ultimate guide to each of the platforms. So at the very least, having settings on the phone that they can't download an app unless the parent approves it. Good start. Having parental control technologies, and they come free. Screen time on the Apple devices, Google Family Link on the Android devices. And again, there's incredible resources out there that'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to do this. And I think that parents, when they start thinking, oh, well, maybe we should put some filters on the Wi-Fi at home or put some parental control technologies when their child's sort of 13, 14, that's way too late. The kids are seeing porn at 9, 8, 9. You must know what your children are up to. And I know it's hard, but having full access to their devices, making sure you know which apps they're using, how those apps work, making sure you have passwords. In South Africa, we talked about capacity, civil capacity 7, criminal capacity 12 or 14, depending. Contractual capacity is 18. Now, why that's relevant to someone like you is that when your child downloads a game, downloads an app, they create an account on WhatsApp. Yes. They tick a box saying, I agree to your terms and conditions. That is your child entering into a contract with Meta. They can only do that if you're a party to the contract or you have consented, right? Which means you're actually a party to what's going on because your child can't go and enter into a legal contract with Meta without you. They don't have contractual capacity. So you can go and check your child's phone whenever you want to.
In fact, you should.
You must, certainly, when your child is 11 years old.
Yeah.
But what's important still is it means that if that child sends a super dodgy message to their mate, and the mate's mom checks the phone and it lands up in my inbox at the police at the principal's desk, this child who sent the horrible stuff can't say, oh, but that mom infringed my privacy, because that child must be thinking that that mother's a party to the communication. Very interesting. So the contractual capacity issue is, I think, something that really works in the favor of parents, because it's basically to say to your children, I'm a party. You've got to think of your parent as being a party to whatever communication you have. I still think that you can do a product recall. I think if you've given your child a smartphone at 11 years old and you know that they're on all sorts of dodgy websites and you've seen the mental health impact it's having on your child, I think you can still be the parent and do a product recall. You know, when you know better, you do better, then be the parent and backtrack. And there'll be teething issues and you can do it slowly and it takes time, but it is possible. I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Yes.
And I know for absolute certain that by the time they get to the end of primary school, grade 7, it will be unheard of for children to have a smartphone. Unheard of.
Really? You think the tide will turn like that?
It's turning already. I really started to appreciate how important it is for parents to get together and say, we're all going to hold out. And now we've done this in a very formalized way. There is a new website in South Africa, the Smartphone Free Childhood. It's a parent-led initiative. Nobody's making any money out of it. sfc-sa.co.za. And one of the huge parts of this movement is to have on there a pact where there is a drop-down menu. You go to the primary school that your child goes to, and then we put all 18,000 primary schools on that website in the country. You choose your child's school, your grade, and you sign a pact saying, I'm going to hold out. I'm not going to get my child a smartphone until the end of primary school. Then when 10 other kids in that grade, when their parents sign it, it gets unlocked and you get an email with their details. So you can kind of find your tribe, right? And it is what the clever people are saying to us is that if we can just get 1 in 4 to sign this pact, to say I'm going to hold out, that's enough. That's going to be enough for the whole tide to change. The parents are loving it. They're all signing it. They're all so excited. Don't be scared. There are so many fabulous resources. 10 years ago, we didn't have these resources. We now do. We've got Bark. We've got Protect Young Eyes. We've got Defend Young Minds. We've got Common Sense Media. There are these international platforms. There are local ones as well. If anybody wants to DM me, I can send you a whole resource list of people who can give you information about these apps, about these platforms. There are these parent guides. This is what the issues are. These are why you've got to be nervous. So I advise people to go to those platforms. A lot of the content we're getting, especially from the likes of Jonathan Haidt, who has done unbelievable work in this field. The book, The Anxious Generation, has really been, I think, the last shove to push this groundswell of information to parents and actually getting the message out there about why we should be age gating, why we should be so worried about what's happening. So Jonathan Haidt proposes these 4 norms which we should all be advocating for. The first is phone-free schools, so no phone during the school day. I think we should all be on the same page on that. No social media until 16 years old. The world is agreeing that 16 is actually where we've got to head to. The kids get wiser, they get nicer, they get kinder. They do not appreciate the consequences when they're younger. The third is children under the age of 13 should not own a smartphone at all. And then the 4th norm that Jonathan Haidt proposes is that there should be much more real-world, riskier play. The idea is that we are underprotecting our children online and overprotecting them in the real world. The kids are not climbing the trees, they're playing games, they're on the doom scroll. These children are too fragile to cope in the real world because they've never had to do hard stuff. That's backed up by some studies in the UK that have recently been released, and it shows that admissions for young people to ER in the United Kingdom for real world injuries, sprains, breaks, fractures, bruises, injuries, has plummeted. These children they're just wrapped up in cotton wool, mostly because they're not out and exploring and taking risks. But admissions to ER for self-harm, attempted suicides, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, debilitating mental health issues has gone like this. So we're dealing with this graph where the real world stuff has plummeted and the emotional effects of this online childhood is really being felt. The amount of image-based violence that I'm seeing using AI technologies, for me, is reason enough to be very, very, very careful about what content exists about children. You know, I know it sounds scaremongery, but there was a guy sentenced in the United Kingdom 2 months ago, a guy called Hugh Nelson. He's been sentenced to 18 years in prison. And what he was doing was going around to parents' social media accounts where they were sharing pictures of their children, using AI technologies to turn those pictures of those children into child sexual abuse imagery. Sure. This is happening on our doorstep. Ooh. So for me, there is a very, very strong incentive not to let people I don't know and trust have access to digital images of my children. Everybody has the right to privacy. Section 14 of the Constitution. But what does it mean? Well, it means this. From a legal point of view, this is the test. If you can show that you have a reasonable expectation of privacy in a particular set of circumstances and somebody infringes it, you can sue them. And you've got to look after your privacy, because if you don't look after it, you don't have it. So if I put a photograph on social media with no privacy settings, I don't have an expectation of privacy over that content. Anybody can use it. If I've got a privacy setting and I'm only letting very few people follow me, I've got an expectation of privacy over that content. The more you share about your child, the less legal right to privacy they have. So these are my rules for sharenting. I do share the odd picture of my children. I only share on private accounts. There's no point in having a private account if you're going to let people you don't know follow you, right? For me, the test is, would I invite that person into my house and take them through my photo albums? No embarrassing content, no shaming content, no naked pictures. Doesn't matter how young, how damn cute they are, you've got to remember there are horrible people out there and it can land up in the wrong hands. Before I let any content exist in digital format, I ask myself, would I put it on a billboard? Next to a huge photo of my face, my name, the name of the company I work for children, the name of the school they go to. I teach that from primary schools to captains of industry, right? The billboard test, the most important test. And I'm not just talking about what I would put on social media, actually what I would put in digital content, because digital content is dangerous content.
So you're talking about WhatsApp, you're talking about any social media.
Even a photograph of me at a party, drunk, dancing on the table, bottle of tequila in one hand. It happens. I don't want photos of it. I don't want that content out there, right? Because it's reputation management. As your child gets older and they're saying to you, Mummy, please don't put that on Instagram, then listen to it. Because that's your child looking after what I call their digital shadow, which is what other people are posting about them. Listen to it. The extension for children is what I call the 6 Ps test.
Yes.
So if you wouldn't want one of the 6 Ps to see it, you don't let it exist in digital format. The police, any evidence of illegal behavior. Your parents, presume that your parents are going to read every damn thing you're putting into your phone. Your principal, so the school's rules, which apply to you not just at school, but outside of school, on social media as well. A predator, someone trying to gain your trust, create a relationship with you. A potential employer, university, scholarship provider, sponsor, high school. And a fisher, someone interested in your personal information. Location services, passwords, accounts. If you wouldn't want one of the 6 Ps to see it, don't let it exist in digital format.
Just don't put it out there.
You know, we're living in a world where the number one job that the teenagers want, they want to be content creators. They want to be influencers. That's what they want. They want to be famous. And at the great cost of their privacy and safety, I'm seeing 11 and 12-year-olds buying followers. Because there's this idea that whoever's got the most followers is the coolest, whoever gets the most likes is the prettiest. Trying to reprogram these children to understand if you've got a lot of likes, you've got a lot of followers, doesn't mean you're a better person, a kinder person, a cleverer person. It means you know how to work the algorithm. Yes, that is a career path. You might choose it. Not yet. Not yet. Let your brain develop more. Let the world start understanding these AI, image-based violence, privacy issues a little bit better. Parents, this is a very scary, very dark, middle of the night path your child is walking down, and they need you to hold their hand and to bring a torch. They need that. And you can only provide that assistance if you've got an idea about what's going on. I remember a few years ago when WhatsApp updated its terms and everyone was like, oh, they're spying on us. Get off WhatsApp. I was like, that's a surprise to you? Of course they're spying on us. It's their whole damn job to spy on us. Some of them are a little more covert. Some of them are a little bit obvious, but their whole job is, how do they spy on us? How do they find out everything there is to know about us? And how do they addict us? Those are their 2 jobs. And why do they have those 2 jobs? Because they need to make money. That is their job. To be critical, to be cynical, is one of the most important things we can be instilling in our children before they enter the online world. I want you to presume every single person you meet online is not who they say they are, until you can prove that they are. I want you to presume that that absolute belter who's just slid into your DMs is actually the dude who drives the red free candy van with the dodgy pedophile mustache hanging outside the school gates, until you can prove that they are who they say they are.
Wow.
And I say this to the kids, like, do a reverse image search or video call them. If they don't answer, they put you on the ceiling. It's the free candy guy.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, I could never video call them. But they're happy to send them their nudes.
Yes.
So being cynical about what we're seeing,
Yes.
being cynical about the platforms, about the motivations of the companies, which is profit.
I've heard people say more and more these days there's no such thing as a safe space. But how can we create safer digital spaces, particularly if you're a parent for your children?
Yeah, I think safer digital spaces, but also safer real world spaces.
Yes.
Don't be too scared to say, okay, the play date's at my house, everyone's leaving their phone at the front door.
Yes.
Let's be in the real world.
Yes.
I think that's cool. Digital hygiene.
Digital hygiene. Tell me some elements, tell me some points.
So I think the most important indicator of whether a child is going to be addicted to their device is the parent's addiction.
Yeah.
And the parents are hysterical. They're phoning me and saying, my child's addicted. And then I speak to the child, but they're addicted.
Yeah.
I get children saying to me, their parents pick them up from school.
Yeah.
They stop at the first traffic light and the parents are scrolling social media instead of asking how the child's day was.
If you could give me like a number one parent action tip for online safety for your children, what would it be?
Education. Educate yourself. What are the apps? What are the issues? What is the appropriate age? A platform like Common Sense Media is so fab because it tells you not just what they give the age restriction as, what we think the age restriction should be, but what children who live and breathe this game, this app, this website think the age restriction should be. Very authentic, right? So educate yourself, educate your children about the rules, about the laws, understanding basic concepts like when something is digital, it's out of your control. Don't think you can just send a voice note to your friend and it's not going to land up on the principal's desk. Don't think you can send that nude using a Snapchat auto-deleting message or an Instagram or WhatsApp view once and it will never re-emerge. So understanding that digital content is dangerous content, teaching your children to listen to their intuition. When they get that little feeling in their tummy like, is this person who they say they are? Is it a good idea to send this message? Close your eyes. Think, would I put this on a billboard? Understanding that there are long-term consequences of this very immediate behavior, which is a very difficult thing to do, but having open conversations with your children, letting your children really understand that if they're ever in danger, if they're ever scared, that they can come to you.
Yes,
and that you're not going to freak out.
No
so that if they do come to you and say, I'm being sextorted, or I've watched pornography and I'm only 8 years old, you don't just freak out, because it just means if you do freak out, the next time they won't come to you. If you've got a child in primary school, sign the pact. Go to sfc-sa, sign the pact. We can do this. We can turn back the tide if parents get together and say, we're going to make this a better world.
Yeah.